Elliott is the NFL's leading rusher by a large margin. DeMarco Murray, fittingly, the former Cowboys running back, is a distant second by about 300 yards max. The MVP chants continue. Where does Zeke rank in that conversation?
I don't think he does. And I know what that sounds like because he has that breakaway speed, and he's also become a patient runner. Like, he'll wait for the hole to open, but they don't touch him. Like, forever, they don't touch him. And that's
they didn't touch DeMarco Murray either.
I'm glad you brought that up. Was DeMarco Murray a legitimate MVP candidate? So I looked it up. He got 2 first-place votes compared to Aaron Rodgers' 31 that year. In fact, he and Tony Romo each got 2 first-place votes. J.J. Watt got 13, and Aaron Rodgers got 31. And DeMarco Murray, who we all know is not an MVP caliber player. He's a good player. He's a good running back. He's a B+ at least.
He had a great year.
Had a great year behind a great offensive line in Dallas. The same one they have now, only not quite as good as it is now. 1,800 yards with a 12-4 record. Now, do I think Zeke is better than him? Yeah, I do. I think he's a little better than him. But I didn't really think DeMarco Murray was an MVP candidate that year. It was largely the offensive line. And to be honest, I feel the same way about Zeke this year. I think it's tough to call a running back an MVP in this day and age, Donovan McNabb.
You know, I'm going to disagree. And the reason I say disagree because Tom Brady is #1 in my MVP race.
I agree.
But I can't give. The reason I say Tom, and I can't give Tom because of the suspension.
Right.
He was suspended for 4 games, and they played well without him. We know what Tom can do, but you have to give credit when credit is due for Tom Brady. #2 is Ezekiel Elliott. #3 is Aaron Rodgers. #4 I have Matt Ryan. And #5 I have Matthew Stafford. And I put them in that order because, you know, for Ezekiel Elliott, you still have to understand this young man is a rookie. He's a rookie coming in. We haven't seen anything like this pretty much since, Barry Sanders, maybe? I mean, for a guy to be able to pick up, 1,300 yards rushing right now, I think he'll probably finish with 1,600.
1,500. Yeah. I think he's over 1,500 right now.
1,551 yards.
But that's saying a lot for where he's at right now, let alone he's catching the ball out of the backfield. Not like Le'Veon Bell, where he's coming out with about 8 catches for 60, 80 yards. But yet still, he's establishing the run in which he is the focal point of that offense. And as a rookie, you're asking a lot of him, and he's producing. So is he an MVP candidate, and should he win the MVP? Yes, I think he probably should win the MVP. And I said it before. He'll win the MVP. And Rookie of the Year.
I have one
will
follow-up, Stephen A., real quick, because Bill Polian was on this show, and off camera we're talking, and he said because I'm arguing offensive line, and he's talking about how great Zeke is, and he says the back makes the line, not vice versa.
Absolutely.
You agree with that?
Absolutely. It's just like quarterbacks make receivers better. Receivers make quarterbacks better. But in order for that to happen, your offensive line has to pick up their guys. And so when I look at it in a sense for the Dallas Cowboys, we can talk about what they have on the offensive line. They've got first-rounders up there. You know, Tyron Smith is playing well. But in order for them to put up the numbers that they've been doing, it's because of the running game. That's why DeMarco Murray should have won MVP, because no one really talked about how good they were then because they were young. Now they're a veteran line, and Ezekiel Elliott is picking up more yards pretty much than DeMarco Murray did.
I agree with you with your top 2. I think it should be Tom Brady. I think Ezekiel Elliott. I got Dak Prescott and
over Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's a pick 'em to me. Aaron Rodgers, 32 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, QBR 72, absolutely balling, but they struggled at that middle point of the season. So because of that, I got to hold that against them when I'm comparing that to Dak Prescott, who's got the gorilla on his back, got the team want Tony Romo up in there, the owner chirping away at the mouth and all of this other stuff, all of these distractions, and none of it is fazing him whatsoever, so it's not a distraction. But where Ezekiel Elliott comes in, and this is why I keep saying that I put him above Dak Prescott, even though the quarterback is the more important position. Ezekiel Elliott, 1,551 yards rushing, 13 touchdowns, averaging 5 yards a carry. Only since week 2. Week 2, he had 83 yards rushing. Since that time, he has never rushed for less than 86 yards. He's got about 5 or 6 games for over 100 yards. This dude's got 1,500 plus yards rushing. He's got 2 games to go. Legitimately could end up rushing for about 1,800 plus yards, okay? And then when you look at that, combined with the offensive line, it's one thing to have a massive offensive line to protect you. It's another thing entirely to have a running game to go with that. And that, to me, takes a boatload of pressure off of Dak Prescott, which is why I could take a little bit away from Dak, give a little bit more to Ezekiel Elliott, and that's where I'm at.
But I really don't understand these arguments. First of all, he's not the best player at his position, Zeke, and I don't mean to hate on him. He's been amazing, but Le'Veon Bell is better than he is. I mean, he's just better. Now, he missed 4 games, so he can't be in that MVP conversation.
And he hasn't always performed better because Tomlin and them didn't give him the ball enough.
Right, okay, fine.
And they use him as a receiver.
Exactly.
Okay, but that's part of his value. We're not just judging him. You can only be the MVP if you're used as a pure running back, as a halfback. You know, part of Le'Veon Bell's value is to be everywhere. Okay, and he missed 4 games. He was suspended, so by my Tom Brady argument, he's out of it anyway. My point is, when you're playing a less important position and you're not even the best player at your position, very tough for me to call you MVP, particularly when we see a guy who we see doesn't have MVP talent in DeMarco Murray being considered that way because he ran behind the same offensive line.
But my response to your argument is that you're looking at overall talent as opposed to production. What I'm saying is that the production this year, Ezekiel Elliott has been more productive than Le'Veon Bell. And that might not be Le'Veon Bell's fault. The suspension might be, and then after that, Todd Haley and Mike Tomlin's usage of him may factor into the equation. But there is no doubt that Ezekiel Elliott has been more potent this year than Le'Veon Bell.
I don't have either one of them in my top 5 MVP. MVP in the NFL right now, unless you get some kind of a weird season from a dominant player, like J.J. Watt got some consideration last year. He was having like an all-time great season. Okay, and even then he shouldn't have been MVP. You got 5 guys. Brady's out. You can't miss 4 games. Stop. Rodgers has forced his way into the conversation.
Le'Veon Bell was 4 games.
Yeah, right. That's why he's not in the conversation for me. But by that logic, I also think he's better at the position than Zeke. Zeke's played the whole time, but a lot of that's offensive line. I think Matt Ryan, Derek Carr. I know he had a bad game. Everyone has bad games. Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, and Dak Prescott. If you want to take someone off the Cowboys, why wouldn't it be the quarterback who has so much more responsibility than the running back? I know in the offense, Zeke is featured and he helps Dak do what he does, but Dak is still the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, who's led the league at times this year in QBR and lost 2 games all season.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, and we'll stay with the Dallas Cowboys. The year that DeMarco Murray won MVP, you could have easily put Tony Romo in there for the numbers that he had. I mean, for his third down efficiencies, for the completion percentage, yards completion, the things that Tony Romo struggled a little bit throughout his career, he had an excellent year. That year, it's about production in the year. The thing that I've always had a problem with MVP is it's just like the Heisman Trophy. Are you saying that they're the best player in college football? No, they're not. They just had the best year. And so for Ezekiel Elliott, there's no way that you can look past that and say that he's not a number 1 or 2 as far as the ranking is concerned in the MVP. Yeah, Tom Brady speaks for himself. The numbers he's putting up, guys have been injured. He still continues to stay steady. He should be in that category. But yet still, I think number 1 overall will be Ezekiel Elliott.
We'll say the only player with 1,800 yards rushing in his first NFL season, Eric Dickerson, who'll be with us later in the show. And just so you guys know, he was not fined for jumping in that kettle, the Salvation Army. If I'm the Salvation Army, I'm trying to write the holiday season.
Smart
right
NFL.
But I'm trying to partner with Zeke and help promote their cause.
Yes, smart NFL.
Well.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's about
got that one right. Check.
Especially where there would have been nothing for him to jump in to if you hadn't had it near the end zone.
Right.
Of course. All right, so you heard from these guys on Big D Star back, but who do you think it should be? Should Zeke be the NFL MVP? Go on Twitter now, vote. We'll share those results a little later in the show.
And they're going to give it to Elliott coming left. There's a big hole from Leary and Smith. And Elliott walks the dog and jumps into the Salvation Army Red Kettle. There's the big donation into the Red Kettle campaign. They found the Zeke touchdown. They try to get to him. Whistle goes a stride. Caught ball. Cameron Brate. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Buccaneers lead. For the lead. The kick by Bailey from 38 yards is good. Dallas 23, Tampa Bay 20. It's 4th and 11 for Tampa Bay. 35 seconds left in the game. He rolls right. He throws down the middle of the field, and it is intercepted by Orlando Scandrick. And the Cowboys are going to win this game.
First Take on a Monday. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith are back, and so is Donovan McNabb. Full house today, just how I like it. How we doing?
Let's do it.
I heard there was something you wanted to talk about real fast.
I had a great weekend. Cowboys kind of ruined it.
Yeah.
But even before that, Bernard Hopkins. Great job calling the fight. And I want to applaud you for your kindness. To watch that man sit there and talk about how he didn't get knocked out. It's like, Bernard, I love this brother. We go back more than 20 years. I've been begging him, more so Roy Jones, but to a lesser degree him, no more fighting. And I was happy that he said he's not going to fight anymore. You're 51. You're younger, that doesn't happen. But you're 51.
There's a reason that no one as old as him, or nearly as old as him, has ever won a fight like that. But he was a 2-1 favorite going in. The thing about a fighter when they get knocked out or hurt with a shot, they don't always know what happened. I've seen fights where a fighter's been knocked out, 10 count, out. And 2 minutes later, he's up talking about, what are you talking about? Why'd they stop the fight?
Yes.
Because that's the reason they were knocked out. They were rendered unconscious.
I know we got to move on. My problem was, you spoke to him about a half hour after the fight, and he was still sitting there saying,
I told him he was hit with a shot.
You did tell him. You were very, very kind.
This is a legend. Last fight, Donovan.
Knocked out of the ring.
I
I
know
don't think
you
he's
and
gonna
Bernard
come
in
back.
Philly had a little thing going on, right?
Leave it alone.
My mother said, if
Leave it
you
alone.
ain't got nothing nice to say,
No.
don't say anything.
Leave it alone.
I like your mother. Wise words. All right, coming up later, speaking of LA guys, Hall of Fame running back Eric Dickerson will stop by. How does he see things changing for the Rams in the post-Jeff Fisher era? That's coming up a little bit later in the show, but we start with Sunday Night Football. Dak Prescott was back at it, completing 88.9% of his passes. That's the second highest completion percentage in a game in NFL history where a quarterback threw at least 30 times, and Dallas snapped Tampa Bay's 5-game win streak. Stephen A., is it time to finally be afraid of these Cowboys? Say it.
Yeah. They're starting.
You speak up.
Huh? Did you
I
say? I
don't think
didn't hear
people
that.
can hear you. What'd you say?
I said yeah.
Yeah.
I said
Yeah.
yeah. All right. I said yeah, y'all.
Say it with your chest, Stephen A.
I can't say it with my chest right now. I just can't do it. I can't do it
Never
because.
been one to mumble.
Well, these damn new braces.
I was about
I mean, they ain't helping me in that regard. That's what happens when you crack your tooth because you're grinding so much and eat sweets. But I paid the price. Here's the deal. Ezekiel Elliott is a beast. And the way this dude is running the football and the way this offensive line takes pride in blocking for this man running the football, that combined with Dak Prescott's ability to avoid making mistakes is a plus. But then Rob Marinelli got these dudes on defense playing hard. Ain't the greatest defense in the world.
Right.
But they don't relent. They keep coming. And I watched Tampa last night. They came back. They were down 17-3. Ultimately came back. Tied to score at 2020. I get all that. But I never felt like Tampa Bay was going to win this game. Because somehow, some way, the Dallas Cowboys give you the impression that when it's time to make a play, they're going to do it. Usually, I'm calling them the accident waiting to happen. The reason why all of this is news is because I've gotten myself to the point where I still believe they will lose. I'm not wavering from the fact that they will lose. But I think you're going to have to beat them. The only way they're going to beat themselves is if Jerry Jones messes it up and Tony Romo gets up in there. If not for that, you're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves.
See, I'm not scared of the Cowboys because I'm a Giants fan. Why would I be scared of the Cowboys? Beat them twice. 2 times. Only 2 losses this season, both to the Giants. If anything, the only thing to be worried about if you're a Giants fan is you got to beat them 3 times to get out of the NFC. That's tough to do to a divisional rival, and they were both close games. Here is, if you like Dallas now and you didn't before, they came up with a little pass rush, Donovan. They could bring a little pressure with 4, which is something new for them, which is what they need against the Giants if they face them, because that's the Giants' weakness on the offensive line. And Jameis didn't have a big game, but that's partly because of the pass rush. The offensive line is excellent. We've known it all season. And I think the scariest thing about them, Donovan, again, not as a Giants fan, but as a fan of every other team's fan should be a little scared, is that they're disciplined and young.
Absolutely.
They got the pep in their step, the fresh legs of youth, and somehow they have the discipline, particularly at the quarterback position, of veterans.
You know, it's funny because as a player, one thing you don't want to hear is when people start talking, basically saying, you guys need to lose 1 game before going into playoffs, just to kind of recalibrate things and refocus on the task at hand. I thought the loss to the Giants was the best thing that could have happened to the Dallas Cowboys. After that happened, I still kept the Dallas Cowboys #1 in the NFC because Seattle, to me, is so inconsistent on offense that I don't know if you can rely so much on Russell Wilson to do it all. Now, defensively, I mean, the communication is not the same. Obviously, Earl Thomas isn't there. They're not getting the pass rush consistently like they used to, but I think they'll turn it around. The thing about the Dallas Cowboys that stand out to me is the fact that they are balanced. They're very effective running the football. The play-action game plays so much of a big part in their offense that you got guys standing wide open. You watch a play that happened when Dunbar caught the ball on the right side of the field. Dak Prescott went through 4 reads. 3 of them were wide open. He skipped right past Jason Witten. He skipped right past Cole Beasley, and he went to his 4th read. Then he went to another play where Dez Bryant caught the ball in the middle of the football field where more guys were wide open. Now, you can do that offensively when you're able to run the football. They're relying on stopping the run, and guys are wide open in the passing game. And you have a quarterback that's so efficient that the chains continue to move and they put points on the board. Where defensively, Rob Marinelli doesn't have to blitz. He's running that same defense that made Lovie Smith very successful, that made guys like Herm Edwards very successful. He can go into that Tampa 2 and just let his 4 guys just rush the quarterback. Now, can they do that in the playoffs? That's the thing that I'm worried about. Can they do that in the playoffs if offensively they struggle a little bit in 3rd downs? If they're able to get things going in that regard and defensively they can take over, I think it's hard beating the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC.
Here's my deal. Tampa Bay comes back after reeling early. So what do? They come back. They tie the score 20-20. Next thing you know, Ezekiel Elliott scampers for a 42-yard run. These are the kind of things that concern me because of their running game and how potent it is. This dude, Ezekiel Elliott, and it was apropos that Emmitt Smith was in attendance, cheering him on the whole bit. I love the fact that he jumped into the Salvation Army Bowl. I thought that was real cool, and it's what I loved.
He was smart not to mess with that, too.
It's the Salvation Army kettle, red Salvation
Kettle. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying. You think about Salvation Army, you think about people being charitable or whatever. That brings a lot of attention to it. I thought it was a great move on his part. But I got to tell you something. This kid's ability to run the football is what broke Tampa's momentum. And that's the thing that resonates with me. Whatever we were expecting and anticipating from Tampa, with this kid Brake, who's pretty good, with Evans, who we know is a stud, they go out there and somehow, some way, Dallas's offense gets the ball and disrupts everything.
Well, except the Giants' defense now, and I bring up because all season long it's like Seattle. If someone's going to stop Dallas once they got rolling, it's Seattle. But now I look at the Giants, not only because they beat Dallas twice this year, both times, but Donovan, and it's not just because I'm a Giants fan, that defense is looking elite right now in consecutive weeks against Dallas and then against the Lions. And these are like offenses that have been potent at various points in this season.
But Stafford's
they've given up. Okay, fine.
And that fumble really
They still have given up a grand total of 1 touchdown in those 2 weeks. And if you look at the formula right now for that team, for the Giants, it's dominant defense, just good enough offense, with a weapon in Odell, a little slant, and that can take it 70, 80 yards to the house. Minus Odell, which is actually an extra dimension, an extra dynamic dimension for them, it's reminiscent of the way they've succeeded in recent years when they've been good as a wild card team.
Well, I mean, you can say that, but also the element of the turnover. You know, Eli pretty much threw 3 interceptions in that game if they would have caught the football. I mean, and that's the whole thing about the Giants. We could talk about their defense. We can talk about the pressure. Steve Spagnuolo has done a great job with those guys. They are playing well. There were opportunities missed in the Dallas game that I thought Dak Prescott probably will look back and get cleaned up. I'm sure they'll utilize Dez a little bit more when they on different routes. Now, he's not a route runner, so that means everyone else is going to have to elevate their game. But it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row.
Yeah, that's the issue.
And the whole thing about it, and they're going to have to play in Dallas. Now, that's another issue that no one's really talking about, going in that dome. The way they play in that dome with running the football, also Dak Prescott protecting the football and being efficient, it says a lot about...
Eli wins on the road in the playoffs. That's what he does.
At one time, Dallas was perceived as not really having a home field advantage.
Right.
But now that they've got this running game, it's changed everything.
Yep.
Let's focus in on that. Perfect segue for me. Zeke taking care of business as well, putting up 159 yards and a TD right into that Salvation Army red kettle we just discussed.